But it's that whole, how do they teach a banker to know a counterfeit money? Well, they handle the real thing so much that when they are given the counterfeit, they go,
can feel it
something's
immediately.
off.
Smell it,
and this
touch
is
it.
what we want to do in our homes. We want to glorify healthy sexuality. We want to glorify what marriage is, what a husband and wife, what a real relationship looks like, what pursuit really looks like.
Okay. So we probably need to start recording our break sessions because we get super excited and we're always, wait, we're not rolling. Havilah, I don't think it's, we're talking about this sexualized world.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the aggressiveness of females. One of my favorite all-time stories with one of my boys. Okay. You got to seize your moments. You got to seize your moments to teach them. And you don't want to teach them after the fact. And we were going through the checkout line at a grocery store, and I was writing Kiss the Girls and Made Them Cry, and so I had kind of a heightened awareness of seduction and what was going on. And there's those magazines, and the women are distorted and their breasts are pushed up to their collarbones, and I remember I was feeling my son back into me. He's backing into me, and I thought, okay, why is he? Because he would back into me when he felt afraid.
Yeah.
And so I was like, why is he backing into me? So I started looking around, thinking maybe it was a teacher or somebody I needed to apologize to, and I was like, why are you doing that? And he said, Mom, that woman on the magazine. I was like, yeah, what about her? He said, she looks like she wants to eat me. And it was at this 6-year-old level.
Come on.
He picked up that seducing spirit. And the Bible talks about the adulteress and the seducing woman, how she's after the man's power. After his power. And it says that there's no way to actually even, that fire comes in your lap, it's burnt. You're it's going to take your strength. She's going to take your strength. Yeah. And somehow, as my young son, I said, that kind of woman, that's exactly what she wants to do. Wow. She does want to eat you. She's like a vampire. She wants your strength. I'm pouncing on this moment. That is not the kind of woman that you want to have. And Havilah, this is like a plague.
It is.
Going
it's bad.
on. I mean, I don't know if your boys are seeing it young.
Well, I mean, we definitely, we were happy to be on an international trip, and we went into a room where they were hosting our meals. And my son walks up to me and he says, hey, Mom, there are some bad magazines over there, and I turned them all over. And it was he's 8, but he's very aware. And I think giving them permission to that's wrong. There is bad things out there, and you can do whatever you need to do. Sometimes they'll say, my 4-year-old, I loved it. We went to swimming at a friend's house, and actually he was at her house, and she went to sunbathe, and she put on her bathing suit, and when she walked out, he looked at her and said, whoa, you're naked. And she said, they all started laughing. And again, I'm a mom, I'm nursing babies. There's a lot of, bodies.
It's a different presentation.
And I hadn't told him that. I'd never said to him, now that's a naked woman. He just immediately, and he is my legible one, he's a feeler. He's like, whoa, you're naked. And she said, it was this kind of, I didn't think about it. So I think there is something that God puts in us that's aware of something of us being unclothed. Obviously, we go to the beach. People are in bathing suits.
Yeah, but it was in a house.
It was in a house.
See, it was in a house. So it's like when it's the wrong environment for somebody to be naked in. You probably had a discussion with your boys about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That there are parts of our bodies that we need covered, and this is called modesty, and we talked about that. But the sense that there is an aggressive part, as girls go on, and you guys would know, you have sons that are in different ages. They're in high school. I mean, we get, the women I talk to, the moms I talk to, their sons are at high school. I even have talked to leaders where they have college students, and that's kind of where my world is. I'm with a lot of college students and high schoolers that are in the sex. We talk about sexual purity. But what we're finding is that the girl is the aggressor. In fact, a lot of the men are never learning how to pursue women because they are literally being, solicited.
They're being stalked.
They are. They're getting
stalked.
pictures sent to them.
Yeah.
They're being, hey, whatever you want done, come find me. There's a lot of this, and I'm meeting a lot of girls that literally said, I don't know how to have a boyfriend. I only know how to have oral sex. I only know how to have sex with boys, but I've never had a real boyfriend. So we have a distorted sort of message going on.
Well, and some of the schools are actually facilitating that. I remember when my son was 14, he was a freshman in high school, And he was trying out for the basketball team. He was really tired. And so he had a reading project to do. And he was like, Mom, I can't even stay awake enough to read this. Will you read it to me? And so we climb up on my bed, and it's my son, and it's my grandson's on the bed. And we're like sitting there, and I'm reading this to him. And all of a sudden, it was my youngest son. He closes the book real quick. And I was like, what? And he goes, he's like, I hate this book. I hate this book. And I was like, what? What did you see on the next page? Because what happened was I was reading this page, and I look over, and this is a Newbery-winning book, prize-winning book, endorsed by the public school. And it said in there, I am a champion masturbator.
Wow.
And it said, I have a book with 1,000 naked celebrities in it, and if God didn't want me to masturbate, he wouldn't give me thumbs.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my word. Now, the school was counting on the kids not reading that. I mean, to their parents.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I wonder if the teacher even knows this is in the book, because my other son had gone through the school, didn't read that book.
Yeah.
This was all the freshman boys, and it wasn't a sexuality class. It was English literature. So I said to him, don't worry, you will not have to read another page of this book. You will not have to read another page of this book. So I keep the book at home with me. I called the teacher. I say, hey, I don't know if you know what's in this book. And she's like, yeah, I knew that was in there. And she's like, the boys are really feeling engaged with this book. And my son Arden had told me, Mom, it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I have a female teacher.
Yeah.
And when we were like reading the book, she would highlight this stuff and say, oh, you all do it.
Yeah.
This is just locker room talk. Like she was one of the boys.
Yeah.
And if he said, like, if kids had like their hands under the desk, the teacher's like, what are you doing with those hands?
Yeah.
Completely inappropriate.
Yeah.
And so I called her, and I was like, okay, I didn't know that portion yet, but I called her and I was like, listen, my son, this is violating his conscience.
Yeah.
I didn't pull the Christian card.
That's great.
I said, but this is violating my son's conscience. He doesn't want to read this book. And she was like, okay. And I said, I don't want him ashamed. I don't want him called out. I don't want him embarrassed. I just want him to have another option. And they said, okay. So she did everything wrong. She held up the book. She's like, somebody's mom doesn't like this book, and blah, blah, blah. But everybody that wants to stay with this book, come out of the room with me. Everybody that doesn't want this book. And then she comes and slams a girl's book and the book they'd read last year on his desk and was like, pick. And he was left behind alone in the room. The other boys looked back and were like, we don't like this book either. So two other boys joined him. She called him, and she called me and made it sound like she'd done him a favor, like, oh, I have a little reading book for him. My son comes in, and he burst into tears because of the shame that the teacher had done. It's a female teacher, a mother of boys. And I remember all of a sudden now I was like, okay, why was I okay with my son being safe and letting all the other boys read that book? And I said, now you're in trouble. And so I called the school. I couldn't get a hold of the teacher. I called the vice principal.
Never get an Italian woman.
Never get a Sicilian mother in trouble. And I said, I'm going to write a blog. I said, you pull this book or I'm going to write a blog. And they're like, please don't do that. And I said, do you want to give me one reason why I shouldn't? And they said, well, because we don't want you to. So I excerpt the book, put it out there as a blog. We had over 500 responses over the weekend. Moms freaking out, calling the school. How dare you put this in front of my school? And then it had like an American Indian Native theme. So I fringed up, braided my hair, pulled my Native Indian card, went in and said, these are not my people. And I got the book pulled, not just out of the school, but the entire school district. So mommies,
come on,
you have voice. I actually went to Focus on the Family and said, can you guys help me? And they said, actually, you have more power as a parent than you realize. And so I went in there. I don't know what you might be seeing, and maybe your kids are safe, but if your kids have other kids around them that are exposed to the same thing, it ends up crossing over. So, with this aggression, we need to, and we're seeing the girls being really aggressive.
No, I love that. And I love that we do have the power to say, not in my house. Like, I love you, but we're not doing this.
And not with my tax dollars.
And not with my tax dollars, right. I mean, I think it's really important, like we said, to teach our kids no's and allow them to say, I don't want this girl on my number anymore. I don't want to see this. I mean, I feel like some of the issue that happens with a lot of these is that girls are trained to be the aggressor. We have to, I feel compassionate sometimes because these girls are so sexualized at a young age. Yeah. They're told that they're only their body. They're told that they need to be
manipulation
hero in the bedroom. Yeah, there's all these things that they're really taught all these things and then said, don't be the aggressor. But what we need to do is allow a man to know, it's the whole, story that I'm not the first to say this, but it's that whole, how do they teach a banker to know a counterfeit money? Well, they handle the real thing so much that when they are given the counterfeit,
They
they go,
can feel it
something's
immediately,
off.
smell it,
And this
touch
is
it.
what we want to do in our homes. We want to glorify healthy sexuality. We want to glorify what marriage is, what a husband and wife, what a real relationship looks like, what pursuit really looks like. You know, one of the things we do in our home is we really use we have a date night. And we don't get it every week because I'm traveling, we minister, we've overseen ministries and life and, you know, all that good stuff. And someone's sick, usually has a fever or vomiting
Life
at least
happens,
twice,
right.
twice a month. But we try to value the date night so the son sees, and I get dressed up, and I don't want to get dressed up. I mean, at the end of the night, he knows, you know, we know we're old married people in that way. Like everything is we'd like to do life together. But the truth is, I want them to see what a woman looks like, a married woman getting ready and preparing and being dating, and we try to kiss each other and hold each other's hands and put our arms, because we don't want them to think that when you get married, it's over. We want them to know that marriage and their sex life is a journey. It's an enjoyment of life. And we want them to know that, you know what, dating is fine, but even statistically, and I don't know if you know this, but married people are having sex more often, and they're more fulfilled in their sex lives.
Yeah.
So we want to teach our kids that healthy sexuality is alive, and that the marriage in a married home, is it's well worth waiting. It's well worth waiting to have commitment and to be in covenant. It is worth waiting. So even if that's not your story, sometimes we don't want to tell our kids our stories.
You model the new thing.
You can set your own legacy, and just because you didn't do it perfectly doesn't mean you can't do it right. And I mean by giving them the story. I was in a home where my parents both were part of the free love movement. They had numerous sexual partners. My dad had abortions with different women. I mean, there was a lot of their story. And when they came together, they just said, we want to set a new pattern.
Yeah.
And they were not ashamed of that. They just said, but we're going to learn along the way. So wherever you are, we want to teach our kids about healthy sexuality, but specifically when it comes to who a woman is and how she operates and how a man operates and who he is, giving them that permission to see that differently than the world is teaching them.
And I do want you to say that does not all fall on your husband, because the truth is your son is going to navigate his sexuality with his wife in the future. So you need to be able to talk to him about something. And, you know, since my boys are older than Havilah's, you know, we already navigated the dating, we navigated the dances, we navigated some of the stuff. And I remember 3 of my sons are all coming home from dances, early from dances, not the same dance, but coming home because the girls were bumping and grinding. The girls without underwear on, trying to bump and grind. And my boys were like, you know, here's what we're going to do. Yeah. We're either taking you home or you can stay here and we're going home. But this is not going to happen. And they would try to tell the dates ahead of time. Like like there was Sadie Hawkins. So like boy asked girls and they say, yes, we'd love to go to dance with you. I usually tried to create something where we knew they were going to be safe. There wasn't me drinking. But I empowered my boys to leave the dance, leave the dance. And they had to leave. Yeah. And all of my boys, all 4 of my sons have had girls get sexually aggressive with them. They've had one time was at a party and this girl said, like, Chuck, you said I need to use the restroom, and he like came out of the bathroom and the girl was naked in a room. You know, so these things are happening. And then what happens is if your son does not like respond in the way of this girl, I mean, this girl that when my son came out and she was naked, this girl went AWOL on him. When she did not get her way with him, then she started telling everybody he was gay. Right. Okay, so these are the kind of things our sons are facing, and we as women need to be able to say to them, this is manipulation.
It is.
This is fear and control. This is seduction. None of this has anything to do with purity. Godly women don't talk about things like your penis size. Right. Godly women don't do this kind of stuff. People that like put those kind of things out there, these are not women you'd ever want to marry. Women that fear the Lord. Women that fear the Lord. Yeah. They're virtuous. They're godly. They're going to speak to your potential. They're not going to lower you to your basest desires. And we need to have these kind of conversations with our sons so that they don't fall prey of it. And show them these kind of things. Like, and if, you know, when you like do see a movie that, like you say, what do you think about that woman? Yeah. Have conversations. They'll be like, she's really seductive. Or I remember that my boys watched a movie with us and one of them came down and was like, man, last night I was having all sorts of problems seeing this particular woman in my sleep, and we prayed for them, but stuff like that. And we need to understand that it's precious. And you can't just leave all that to your husband.
And I love that you call it out. Like, I feel like even you saying, this is seduction, like seduction. This is manipulation. I mean, just the fact that you're giving them understanding of what it is, because it is a pool
Yeah, this
and you
isn't
don't
empowering
understand.
you, this is disempowering
Yeah, it's
you.
it's really empowering to do that, and I love that, and I will be doing that.
Yeah, correct.
Watch out, boys.
Yeah, so mommies, you have the power
I love that.
to protect your sons in the schools. You have the power to do that. You have the power to have these conversations with them. You know, if there's music videos or there's people that hear you say, what do you think about that? You know, and I've had conversations with my boys about, you know, like for example, Taylor Swift so far has stayed pretty clean,
Yeah.
you know, and she's been successful without defiling herself. And so, you know, we've been able to say she's talented and she hasn't had to go the dark side.
Yeah.
You know, so like, you can talk about different things. We do believe that music should honor what God honors. But, you know, we have let our boys have, quote, secular music.
Right.
But we don't let them have anything that dishonors God, dishonors men, dishonors marriage, or dishonors human relationships on any level, dishonors anything God creates. But
It's true, and giving them the understanding. We used to read the lyrics as, you know, let's read the lyrics, and just giving them more of a thinking brain. Think about what's coming at you. Think about and calling it pornography, or that is,
because
you know,
even
what
if
they're
the
talking
word's
about.
blanked out and you know what the word is, your brain goes there.
You know.
Yeah, don't do it.
So you have permission to be powerful in your home with your boys and teaching them. I love that, and I will do that.
Okay, I love this activity because it isn't about what to be against. It's not, you know, hey, don't look at this, don't listen to this. Let's begin to create a vision. Let's begin to put a hope in front of them so they can have a future. I know my sons and we've talked about their wives. We've talked about what they're hoping for, what they're looking for. Why not be intentional and begin to dream with your boys about, like, what do you want your wife to be like? What do you want her to look like? What do you want her to think is fun? You know, one of my sons said, hey, what's really important to me is integrity and honesty, but I also want somebody who is funny. I want a sense of humor. I want somebody who is adventurous. Have them begin to focus down on these things and actually begin to write these stories out. I remember when I first met Addison's wife, Juliana, I was just like, okay, this is the one, because he had already shared with me so many times what his dream was, so that when he saw her, he knew her. We live in a day and a time where people, they need to have a clear vision. Let's have our kids live with intent, so that they don't just fall into this by accident. Let's build something for their future so that they don't fall for anything now. Let's give them the tools they need. Dream with them. You add in attributes, they add in attributes. Make it a living, breathing, organic prayer and document for your family.